At noon it was a weather balloon. By night the base sealed a side wing and posted armed guards. A tarped convoy rolled past the ranch road. A redacted memo slid across my desk with my name misspelled on purpose. The morgue lights burned all night, but the door never opened. I signed for 3 body bags I never saw, and at 0207 a captain I'd never met said, "Access denied." All night. I'll show you the logbook page that was torn out and the shipping label that changed twice before sunrise. But first, listen to the sentence that ended the argument in my head. Records don't breathe. I was 28 that July, and the Army had taught me 2 valuable arts: moving things and proving that I moved them. Medical supply. Transportation was my corner. Paper, canvas, wheels. I could requisition serum in a sandstorm and get dry ice to a corpse without losing a pound to desert heat. The Roswell Army Air Field smelled like disinfectant and hot rubber. The hangars hummed with fans that were big enough to look like a plan and small enough to be a joke. On July 7th, 1947, the desert had the color of a letter you forgot to answer. At 12:05, a clerk from Public Information carried a mimeographed release to the bulletin board and tacked it up like bad news at a school. "Weather balloon," he said, enjoying the pronouncement more than the paper. I read it, put my pencil behind my ear, and returned to my morning, splints, gauze, and the summer problem of keeping iodine from winning the room. Then the phone on my desk did the ring that means you were volunteered. "Medical supply," I said, "which is Army for how may I save your day?" A voice I didn't know said, "Prepare 3 mortuary bags and 2 dry ice containers. Deliver to Sidewing C, door M3, 1900. The voice mispronounced my name when it asked me to repeat the order. He did it the way you mispronounce on purpose, to make your mouth own the lie. I wrote the time, wrote 3, wrote 2, and wrote Sidewing C with a box around it because Sidewing C is where the morgue lives. And the morgue doesn't make appointments, it receives them. At 16:30, the first truck came down the ranch road toward the hangars under heavy tarps, flanked by a jeep with a corporal whose jaw looked drafted. The tarp hooks were cinched so tight the canvas looked like it had learned to be metal. The stenciled markings on the nearest crate, what you could see of it, read medical training aids in a font that always makes me think of men who lie to their wives about poker money. I signed for nothing. I logged nothing. I watched everything. By 1840, a memo found me. It had black bars like someone had invented an early thunderstorm and pressed it to paper. "Balloon debris," it said in the line that mattered. The line that matters is always the one someone tries to talk around. At the top, the routing block carried my name with a spare E shoved in, miselection as policy. My sergeant slid it over with 2 fingers like he was pushing a coin to a beggar. "You'll do as told," he said, which was Army for, you're in the part of the building where voices don't carry. Sunset cuts the desert into 2 arguments. By 1910, the air had found a tone the fans couldn't fix. I loaded 3 body bags, heavy green brass zips, clean, and 2 bins of dry ice that smoked like we'd put breath in boxes. I logged them out. 3 issued and 0 returned, signed, carbon copy, neat block letters that would still be readable if the world flipped over. Sidewing C wears its cool like a uniform. Iodine and phenol compose the choir. Linoleum adds percussion. The morgue light at the end of the corridor was already on when I arrived. A square of yellow against a door with a frosted window that would show you a shadow if the world decided to move. I knocked once because the hand always betrays the brain at a threshold. The guard read my delivery order like it was a love letter he planned to correct. "Hold," he said. He went inside. He came back with a captain whose face had been manufactured by a factory that uses angles instead of skin. The captain didn't ask for my paper. He asked for my name. He mispronounced it like the memo had, and I understood what it is to be made generic. "Access denied." "All night," he said. He said it like he had practiced. He said it like the door had asked him to. The guard put his palm over the M3 knob like he was saving its innocence. "Sir, the order," I began. He cut my sentence where you cut rope. "Leave the equipment. Stand by for further. Which is Army, for we will make your paper worthless if the room asks." I left the bags on a stainless cart and set the dry ice bins by the wall where heat forgets to brag. The morgue light threw consistent color. The door stayed shut. We posted a soldier at each end of the corridor, and the way their rifles held the fluorescent was the only reflection anyone had a right to see. At 20:30, the PA clicked and carried a breath instead of a voice. Short, shallow, human enough to be wrong. It lasted 6 seconds, and then the speaker remembered it had joined the Army, and a woman from base operations announced that the public statement had been clarified. Balloon debris. Training materials. No cause for concern. My pencil wrote training materials and put a question mark after it, not because I had opinions, but because the carbon copy deserved sympathy. At 22:10, a jeep idled in the alley behind the side wing, and a corporal I had never seen before moved labels from one crate to another with the care of a man who had been told that paper could be heavier than wood. The labels changed from medical training aids to balloon debris with the kind of scotch tape that loses to heat. Then at 0:17, a sergeant with a clipboard came, peeled that label too, and pressed on the third, "Do not manifest." The label looked like a sentence that had lost its verbs. At Z041, the phone on the nurse's station rang. I picked it up because hands must serve someone. The line carried breathing, closer than the PA's even, concerned, not mine, than nothing like an open field. "Base hospital," I said, because truth is a habit. Then the click Duro 129. A shadow moved behind the frosted window in M3 like a shoulder, or like two. The captain drifted into the corridor at the same pace as the seconds, and stood with his hands behind his back, daring the door to be more interesting than he was. I had placed my clipboard on a metal stool to make a note about the dry ice levels, because numbers are a circle you can draw around your fear. He stepped on the page with his boot in a way that looked accidental and felt deliberate. I slid it free. He watched like a man telling a child not to drop good china. At 02:07, he said the line that made me understand how long the night had decided to be. Access denied. All night. The wall clock over his shoulder registered 02:07, made the smallest tremor in its second hand, and did 02:07 again. The corridor clock by the stairwell read 02:08, and then, like remembering a story it had been told to stop telling, 02:07, we don't loan time in a hospital. But the building behaved like it had. I went to the office to check the logbook, because records don't breathe, and I needed something in the room that agreed with me. The page for 07:07 was there when I arrived, then wasn't when I returned with my pencil sharpened. Torn, not cut. Ripped on a diagonal like a man in a hurry who wanted to insult the paper. The carbon copy below, faint and backward, still showed my hand. 3 body bags issued, 0 returned. The line below, cadaver intake, was blank. It's a stupid little miracle when nothing is the loudest thing on a page. Around 03 SAR, a tarped truck rolled slow by the ranch road again, escort headlights off. We weren't supposed to look out windows, so I looked at polished steel instead, the way you watch a room without moving your neck. The captain stayed where the morgue door could see him. He didn't knock. He didn't key in. The light stayed on. If you're waiting for me to open a door I wasn't allowed to touch, you're missing the point of how containment works. Containment isn't guards. It's habits. Don't ask, do log, let paper sleep in the drawer it's assigned. I filled out a dry ice replenishment form and placed it under the bins that no one had opened. The ice paid no mind to my diligence and smoked like breath. At 04:22 I went to the latrine, and this is the part where you roll your eyes and I shrug. The fan above the sink dragged in hot air and exhaled cold. And for 1 minute the mirror fogged in a rectangle shape that did not match the size of any face I've ever shaved. I wiped it with a towel. The rectangle stayed clear where the towel had never touched, then surrendered and fogged like the rest, as if someone had signed a non-disclosure agreement with humidity. Sun takes the desert personally. At 05:37, a pale stripe found the upper windows and let the captain dissolve the way night does when it realizes it's the least interesting person in the conversation. The morgue light still burned. The door still hadn't opened. You learn to hold 2 truths in a base, the paper and the room. Paper said weather balloon, then balloon debris, then training materials, then do not manifest, with an efficiency that suggests everybody in the chain has been to this rodeo. The room said 3 mortuary bags, 2 dry ice bins, morgue light on, access denied, logbook page torn, time 1 twice, label changed twice, captain, I don't know, knows my name wrong, guards at both ends. By 09:10 on July 8th, the base had been taught a line you could repeat to your mother without pulling your mouth out of shape. A fresh memo moved through the building like a priest who'd had a drink. Confident, a little too loud. It used the word balloon 3 times in a paragraph short enough to fit on a matchbook. The redactions were clean this time, not bars so much as absences. My sergeant initialed my shift log with the scrawl of a man who wants his hand to be working elsewhere. Then he signed the copy with a different scrawl like the paper didn't deserve the same person twice. I went to the morgue with a fresh requisition for formalin because procedures are what you walk when the ground moves. The guard at M3 was new. He didn't know my name well enough to mispronounce it. The light was off. The door was locked. The bin where I had tucked the dry ice form was empty. I signed the formalin request denied because I didn't want its carbon copy to find religion. A medical officer I knew, small, neat, the kind of man who irons inside his coat, passed in the hallway carrying nothing with a weight that suggests something. He looked at me and then at my clipboard and then at the corner where a clock had not forgiven us for the night. "Records don't breathe," he said and walked on. I don't know if he meant it as comfort or as doctrine. I took it as shore leave for my mind. Back in supply, my logbook sat where I had left it, -0707. The binding showed fibers where the tear had happened. Messy, rushed, not a knife job. I opened the carbon pad and there it was, ghost text backwards, my hand. 3 body bags issued, 0 returned, 02.07 access denied. All night, I copied the ghost onto a 3-5 card because you find ways to save what the room insists on sending to sea. Next to my pencil cup sat a strip of shipping labels, the throwaways with medical training aids, balloon debris, do not manifest all half torn. I slid that talon into my pocket because I lacked the discipline people admire and because one day I'd want to see what my eyes had already paid for. In the motor pool, the jeep that had led the convoy sat with its hood up and its battery unclipped as if someone wanted it to learn a lesson. The corporal with the jaw smoked a cigarette like penance and blew it toward the place where last night had been. "Did you see?" he asked, but he asked it like he wanted me to teach him not to. "I saw paper," I said. He nodded the nod. Men give each other when they agree to put their chairs back under the table. We had aftercare the way small tragedies do. For 2 weeks, base ops phones did a 7-second open line at 07 past the hour with no voice. The morgue ordered new bulbs for the hall light twice, and both times the requisition came back, already filled with a date that was last week. The badge reader at Sidewing C denied me on a Tuesday and allowed me on a Wednesday, with the same badge and no maintenance ticket in between. A corporal began using the wrong spelling of my name because that's what rooms do to people when they want to keep them generic. If you're here for the mess hall story, the one with sheet-covered stretchers and little gray men with big black eyes, I don't have it. I have carts and forms and light that burned behind a door that didn't open. I have a memo that was redacted and then reissued under a different noun. I have an order for 3 bags and a 000 return. I have labels that thought they could get away with changing shirts. I have a captain with a borrowed face saying access denied all night. I have 2 clocks that couldn't agree and then did. What I believe rooms tell the truth in profiles. You stand sideways to them and they show you where the angle is wrong. They don't show you why. That's not their assignment. They show you what you can prove to yourself when you're tired and your pencil is on its 3rd point and the man with the captain's bars has learned your name wrong. I took my 3x5 card, the one with my ghost copy of 3 issued and 0 returned, and tucked it inside the Bible in the barracks, not because I wanted Jesus to notarize it, but because I wanted it to live in a book nobody throws away on inspection day. Years later, I would fish it out with hands that had changed and read the backward letters with the satisfaction of a man who stayed on his feet when the room tried to take his name. If any of what I've said looks like the shadow of something, you've lived. 2 memos with 2 truths, a page that goes missing, a light that burns behind a locked door, a convoy that prefers canvas to answers. Tell me with 1 word so I know I didn't pat myself to sleep. Denied. No serials, no names, no ranks, just denied. I'll read it like I read the supply manifest on quiet days, with the respect you owe things that never learned to breathe. Records don't breathe. I say that to recruits to stop them from guessing. I say it to myself to stop me from believing. Some nights, July 7th, 1947. You hold the paper, and you hear breathing anyway. That's how you know the room has learned a secret. And that's when you remember why doors have locks. I am supposed to end with a moral that lets you sleep. I don't have one. I have procedures and a name I still pronounce the way my mother taught me. I have the image of a light where a door should have been. I have tarp hooks that taught canvas how to be ornery. I have scotch tape that learned rank. I have a captain who taught a corridor its favorite sentence. If you need a line to carry out of this room, make it this. Count what you can count. Watch the door that doesn't open. And when someone says, weather balloon, check which drawer the labels are in. Records don't breathe, the doctor said. The night did.